Boom. Welcome all. Gonna wait a second for folks to join in. Hello. I am going live. Somebody asked. I certainly am. I would like to wait a minute for folks to come in. Oops. Born music's playing. That's kind of fun. That was wild. I had the video on in the background on YouTube, and it was doing this like funky music. Hey, everybody, say where you're from, please. And I've decided I'm going to attempt to keep both comment streams open today, my YouTube comment stream and the one I'm using with the streaming software, because maybe the YouTube will work better. Although I'm already seeing the YouTube uses a smaller font, which I'm not thrilled about. Oh, you crazy YouTube. All of these programs written by young people. Hey, guys. Excellent. I am live, right? I know it's a little bit delayed for you all. Is it not showing me live? Oops, I should be live. I'm live on YouTube. I am. All right, guys. I'm going to write a quick little thing. All right. Oh, I'm live. Okay, good. You're all scaring me. I'm seeing you guys write in the comments he's not live. Don't scare me. Right. Hey, guys, UK. As I said, I'd like to sort of have folks go around, just say where you're from. Denmark, Jersey, Penn, South Carolina. We still like the Americans. You guys are still okay anyway, being an American. But just fun to see folks from around the world. Happy St. Patty's Day. I have nothing. I have green plants. That's my green for St. Patty's Day. So that's what I do. I'm the gardener guy. Got it from my Greek ma. Oop. And today I'm not doing Instagram because it's not enough people. And frankly, it's a lot of work for not a lot of people. I'm looking right here to make sure I adjust my thermostat because I'm getting warm. And we take this first minute just for folks to check in and to get folks to log in. So I excuse anybody who's joined and isn't sure what we're doing. We always wait a minute for folks to sort of get in here. So we just have people introduce themselves. American Ukrainian, like, nice to meet you, Olga. Hope your family is okay. Yes, I don't have green. I don't own green. I own nothing green. All right, folks, I'll start the intro. I've got a lot of news today to jump through. I will hopefully hit it in the first half hour like we always do, and then Q&A. Because we are on, most of this is Facebook. And for anybody watching elsewhere, my Facebook account is John Aravosis DC, John Aravosis DC on Facebook. Most of the chat's happening there. On Facebook, as you know, you can do by hitting the little, since people have asked where it is, below the comment box, there's a little $sign in YouTube. If you hit the $sign, it'll bring up super stickers and super chats. And it's a way of you to support me, but also engage a little more with the conversation. Super stickers just lets you pick fun stuff to send on the screen for everybody to see. You pay something for it, and I get some of the money. YouTube gets some of the money. So it's a nice way to support me and also just kind of be funny, I guess. Super chat is kind of interesting. Super chat allows you to donate as well. Again, the money goes to TikTok and me. TikTok, I'm sorry. I'm still stuck in my TikTok head. I do have a TikTok update too. I'll give you in a second. It goes to YouTube and me. And what Super Chat's nice is it lets you put in a question and it'll pin your question at the top for a period of time. Now, I don't really care how long you pin it. I mean, the more you pin, the more you pay, which is nice for contribution's sake. But I try to answer every question that you guys buy in Super Chat. Yesterday, I know I missed somebody and then got her at the end. I apologize. But there's a lot of questions just in general scooting by. So the mods are going to try to help me today a little bit more. And I know they're pretty busy too, dealing with the bad guys. So anyway, I try to get to all the Super Chat questions first because you've paid for those. And then, only then, I will go to the general questions as a favor to the folks who are contributing. Now, quick TikTok update. The reason I am doing this, and for anybody who's new on YouTube who doesn't know, the reason I'm doing this on YouTube and not TikTok, because I'd started on TikTok, was about a week ago, a lot of Russian trolls came into the comments. They've been there all week and reported me to TikTok as providing hate speech against Russians. I was broadcasting hate speech. Now, you will see with the news I do tonight, I do a straight up news reporting and analysis. I sort of synthesize the news of the day, the stories I think matter, and then explain to you why they matter. For example, we're going to get into some China stuff, some of these things, and then we do a Q&A later. Well, the Russians got me banned from doing these lives on TikTok, which really sucked because we had a lot of people. We were getting a lot of people, actually, like 15, 20,000 or more for each chat. The news on that is TikTok support has reached out to me again today, says they're working on it, and at least I've got the contact there. So knock on wood, it has taken many days for them. They can't figure out what's wrong. All I can say is the Russians are very good at whatever they do. All right, guys, let's jump right in. I didn't mean to take the first couple of minutes doing this, and then we'll jump into the questions. So top stories. I want to start with a top story that is a very nice, feel-good top story because we're always starting with all the bad news from Ukraine. This is a good, actually, we got a nice, decent sunset in D.C. coming in orange. A good news story from Ukraine. The Italian cultural minister just tweeted that they got together with the other ministers, the cabinet, in essence, of the prime minister's cabinet in Italy, and they are going to rebuild the theater in Mariupol that got bombed by the Russians the other day. This is a drama theater, we call it here in the States, because theater in the States, thank you, Richard, by the way, theater in the States often means cinema. I think cinema is probably an older word here in America. So when you say theater, it's kind of a little confusing. Anyway, this is a drama theater that the Russians bombed in the town of in Mariupol. This is the place where the Ukrainians are saying 1,300 women and children, because the men are pretty much out fighting. 1,300 women and children were seeking refuge in this theater. The Russians bombed it. It had written on the field outside the theater in Russian, the word children in Russian on both sides, huge letters, so that you could, and on the field flat, so you could see it from up above. The Russians destroyed the place. So far, 130 people have been rescued. They're hoping more. There has not been any deaths yet reported, but who knows? There still could be 1,000 people missing. They are hoping that the people that were down below are still safe because they were underground, but hopefully it didn't collapse. So kind of scary news. But the good news, though, is the Italians offered to rebuild the theater entirely at their expense once things come back. And as you know, the Italians have got quite a flair for doing things. So anyway, obviously still horrible what's going on there, but it still made me feel good. That kind of a nice story. Yep, we love it. Maria, we love the Italians. Now back to the scarier stuff. So President Biden today, in a very interesting change, called Putin a murderous dictator, a pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine. What is interesting about that is Biden tends to be a measured guy, right? Even when he would occasionally get ticked at the media in our country and he would sort of go off on them. And then do you remember how the next day he'd apologize? Like he went off on the White House correspondent for Fox News, Peter Doocy, I believe is his name. And the next day he called him, he apologized. You know, Biden is not somebody who likes to confront people. And yesterday we saw Biden for the first time say that he thought Putin was a war criminal. Before that, the U.S. government would get asked about the war criminal issue, and they would always back off and say, well, you know, that's a legal question for the International Court of Justice, blah, 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 right? So very interesting that now yesterday Biden says war criminal. Today, Secretary Blinken, who's our Secretary of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, you'd say abroad, he came out and said the same thing. He believes the Russians are committing war crimes in Ukraine. And again, I know that's obvious to everybody, but I'm putting this in the context of the U.S. has not been saying this until the last 24 hours. So something changed. They made the rhetoric more harsh. And now you see Biden calling Putin a murderous dictator, a pure thug it's interesting. Let's see where it leads, but it suggests when the language changes, often the policies start to change too. So just keep an eye on that. But I think we are seeing a material shift potentially in Biden. Again, sometimes words are just words, but in this case, there may be a shift in what Biden is thinking. Biden is going to be talking by Zoom with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping tomorrow, Friday. The White House has warned that today that there is, quote, high concern that the Chinese may be sending weapons to the Russians in Ukraine, that they may have agreed to send weapons in Ukraine. Obviously, that's going to be a huge topic for their talk tomorrow. The Chinese have been kind of, I would say, putting out mixed messages on all of that. So the hope is that they won't, obviously. But the White House has also warned them that if they do send weapons, there are going to be repercussions for it. I'm assuming U.S. sanctions, things like that on China, which is not good because that would be bad for world trade across the board because we import so much from China. I mean, it's a mess across the board. China's much more important economically by, magnitudes than Russia is, obviously. The New York Times says overall, in terms of the last 24 hours, Russia is making minimal progress in general by land, sea, or air. The UK intelligence says that Russia, they say the same thing. The UK intelligence says Russia has made minimal progress on land, sea, or air in recent days and continues to suffer heavy losses, in other words, heavy troop deaths. The Ukrainian military in that regard claimed last night over Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, that they shot down 10 Russian planes and missiles. Don't know if it's true. We do know one missile was in fact shot down because the remains hit a building and they found the remains of the Russian missile. So that was at least shot down. The Pentagon now estimates in terms of Russian war dead, the latest figure out of the Pentagon is 7,000 Russian war dead, which is greater than the number of U.S. troops killed in Afghanistan and Iraq over the last 20 years. Now I'm going to get out my phone because I wrote a quick note down literally right before I came on with you guys. General Hertling, my favorite general of late, former American general, CNN has him as a contributor and does a lot. He's an amazing guy, really knows his stuff. I think very objective level. He's a general, very level-headed. Hertling said that that figure of 7,000 Russian war dead is, quote, exceedingly conservative. He thinks it is much, much higher. That was his exact phrase, exceedingly conservative. It's much higher. Hertling said that I wrote down his quotes really quick. Russian military was not prepared to conduct this kind of conventional operation. Their soldiers, and I'm paraphrasing here, their soldiers have run away from the fight, and that's why they're shelling civilians. Because the soldiers aren't fighting, their soldiers have been killed, the vehicles have been destroyed, and they're just saying, get me out of here. So what do the Russians do? They don't have enough troops. That's why they're trying to bring people in. There was talk about Syria, but even more, there was some figure I saw of 40,000 mercenaries from Syria. I'm not going to believe it until I see it, but they're clearly trying to get troops from elsewhere. There was another report today, by the way, as well, that a Russian ship or maybe a ship convoy is leaving Vladivostok in the Russian Far East, southeastern Russia, northwest of Japan, right east of China, that region of Asia. A big ship carrying a lot of troops, I didn't see how many, is heading out. It is expected to pass around India and then go through the Suez Canal to come in. Now, if it can get to the Black Sea, because let's see if Turkey even lets them through, that's going to be an interesting issue. But they're trying to resupply the actual troops themselves because they're running out of manpower. Let me see what else Hertling said. There's troubling reports that the Russians are moving in long-range artillery, again, because they want to be able to destroy the Ukrainian civilians and towns without getting close enough to get clobbered, because they're getting clobbered and they don't have the troops to get close enough. Their logistics is terrible. They can't bring in soldiers on the ground, so they're bringing weapons that they can bomb civilians with, i.e. artillery. So that was my quick update on my phone that I'd written down literally watching the news about 15 minutes ago. Russia today, rather disgustingly but not surprisingly, denied that it hit the theater I just told you about in Mariupol, right? We know that Russia bombed the theater. We know there were up to 1,300 women and children hidden in the basement, hiding from the Russians. We know that there was language outside the theater on the ground on both sides that you could easily see from the air that said children. In other words, children present. The Russians destroyed the place. If you see the video or the images of the theater, it's gone. I mean, they bombed. The bomb clearly hit right in the middle of this thing. So really concerned about how many women and children are hurt or killed. The Russians today denied it and claimed it was Ukrainian Nazis who bombed the theater. This is what they do. I mean, it's bad enough that they kill civilians and they intentionally kill civilians. They intentionally target civilians, but the bald-faced lies about it. I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Not like they're going to say, yeah, I killed kids, but just the bald-faced lies. Another story I saw, which was interesting just to keep in mind, Russia is now threatening Bosnia. Bosnia is looking to join NATO. You remember, if you think back to history, more than 20 years ago, right? 1999, actually not just 1999, it's all that era when the former Soviet Union was falling apart and it broke into, I see Chantal, I will jump on that in a moment. Actually, you know what? I will even highlight that, Chantal, so it's sitting here and I don't miss it. But Bosnia, the Russians are threatening Bosnia that if they join NATO, and I'm looking for the exact word, if they join NATO, the Russia will react, and then they reminded Bosnia of what's happening in Ukraine right now. In other words, the Russians threatened to do to Bosnia what they're doing to Ukraine, and I did a quick tweet on it because I said, anybody who thinks Putin's going to stop at Ukraine, this makes clear he will not. And that, again, has been my concern all along. We absolutely have to worry about war with Russia. Absolutely. I think it's a concern. But at the same time, I have serious vibes of, World War II that I did not live through, but I did live through the Cold War. And I feel like we're appeasing, even though we are really fighting back in terms of providing the weapons, I feel like we are on verge of appeasing this guy. And the appeasement of him is only going to, Bosnia, you got to look where Bosnia is on the map. Bosnia is north of Greece. You go north of Greece on the left, on the west, on the Adriatic, you get Albania. I think you get a piece of Croatia there, and then you get Bosnia, right? It's literally across from Italy on the Adriatic. And again, Croatia's there too. And Montenegro as well. I'm sorry, but it's not near Russia. It is. This is all Europe, but it's really Europe. It's north of Greece. It's just east of Italy. It's BS that Putin's claiming he's going to bomb there, which is basically what he claimed. Ticks me off. Anyway, Chantel, put my glasses on so I can see your question. Has your opinion on how this will end changed since this time last week? That's interesting. I would say one thing. I am feeling more and more like, even though from the beginning I've said we shouldn't discount what Putin will do. And what's her name? Fiona Hill, who was State Department, remember all the stuff with Trump and Ukraine and everything else, she did an interview saying, basically, Putin is capable of anything. He will do anything. Anything you think he might not do because it would be going too far, he will do, or he's happy to do. And I thought that from the beginning, but I'm more and more concerned that, I don't know if he's crazy or what, but we have a beautiful sunset tonight. I can't help but look at a bit of a sunset. You can't really get it, but the clouds are doing that. Anyway, nice orange thing. I just worry about what's to come. It doesn't make me any less want to help Ukraine. It doesn't make me any more afraid to get involved and stop this because, again, like I said, I've been a civil rights advocate for 30 years, and it's a lot different than throwing bombs, obviously, but at the same time, you kind of have to put your neck out there and risk repercussions to your career, whether your family's going to turn you away. All sorts of things. And I have a certain hardiness or maybe chutzpah. I'm not Jewish, but if I were Jewish, I might call it a certain chutzpah. That's interesting. Hold on, folks. I'm going to reply to this person on my text, and I'm going to tell you why. Hold on a second. Yes, doing a YouTube. But yes, Rolling Stone wants to talk to me about the TikTok problem. I'll just leave it at that. This is what happens. Actually, I will say this, because this is the kind of stuff that I've been doing actually for 3 decades now. And this is why I say it's sort of weird, the work I do, because I work in politics. I have a very strong foreign policy background, went on the Hill to work in foreign policy, but I also got involved in a lot of LGBT activism. Again, I don't mean this to be political in the sense that I like that we've all come together on this issue together. And it's really only the fringes of the left and the fringe of the right that have decided to kind of side with Putin and criticize Ukraine. It's been really neat. So I don't mean to bring this up as a political thing, so to speak, left or right, but I've done a lot of LGBT advocacy, which is also the reason why, like I said, my mom said to me once, I warned her in the late 1990s, I was working on an issue that was huge nationally. And I warned her, I said, Mom, just so you know, this is blowing up. Your friends may hear about it. And she goes, well, it's not like you're going to, come out gay on TV or anything. And I was like, well, they're going to put my name there. They're probably going to say gay activist or some of those crazy terms they used to always use that I hated. And of course they did. New York Times, ABC News, you name it. So anyway, but bottom line is, yeah, Rolling Stone just got interested in TikTok's position on banning people who are pro-Ukraine. So I've been trying to work with TikTok for a week on this. What do you do? I warned them. In any case, guys. So anyway, which kind of takes me back to Chantel and stuff too, like I was saying. I just, because of that, it's funny, I think, particularly as an LGBT advocate, but I would also say anybody working on civil rights, God, look at the black community. Look at the black community in the 50s and the 60s, what they endured. Talk about people sticking your neck out. I was worried about losing my job and getting beaten up. I wasn't worried about getting lynched. I mean, the stuff that the black community went through, Jews. I mean, you sort of pick Asian Americans now with the hate crimes. It's not easy to be a civil rights activist. Anyway, putting that aside, hold on. She's funny. She's worrying I'm hold on. Okay, she's funny. I'm telling her I'm on live on YouTube. I'm on liver on YouTube. Sorry, guys. YouTube, you're watching me work live. So sorry about that. Okay. Anyway, Chantel, but that was my very long-winded way of saying that, it hasn't changed my mind on needing to stand up to Putin, and the way he's making crazier and crazier comments makes me think the world has got, I'm going to turn off my ringer so you don't hear it, makes me think the world's got to stand up to this guy. It just has to. And I will get to the questions. Remember, we'll do that afterwards. Bosnia, there we go. That's 2 pages. Yes, American civilian killed in Russia. James Whitney Hill, 68 years old. Not Russia, I'm sorry, in Ukraine. In Chernihiv, Ukraine, which was the same one we were just talking about. That's the place where the Russians bombed the 10 people in line at the bakery who were waiting to buy bread. Thank you, Brittany, by the way. That's sweet of you. Who were waiting to buy bread, and the Russians just bombed them and killed all 10 of them. Well, the James Whitney Hill, 68 years old, he was in Ukraine. Melanie, thank you as well. Was in Ukraine because his partner, Irina, and I checked because I thought maybe he was gay when they said partner. Irina is a woman's name in Ukrainian or in Russian as well. And she has multiple sclerosis, was going for some kind of surgery or something that was very serious. Of course, he wanted to be there with her. I believe he went back in December. Because of her condition, she couldn't evacuate. He's been there with her. Well, the Russians opened up, according to local officials, opened up with artillery on a civilian position. He was there and they killed him. Which is really doubly awful, because now there was no mention of her, which makes me think if she survived, she's now surviving with her, her main caregiver gone. The love of her life gone, but also her main caregiver. Just awful. I will pivot from that to a few good stories, as I call them. And remember, we're talking about war, so good is relative. But, hey, hang on. First, I see... Right, Melanie, thank you if I didn't thank you. And I see a question from Todd. Hang on, Todd. Oops, here we go. Put my glasses on for Todd, too. They're using the 20-something font rather than the older person font. The president before Putin was pro-democracy. And since Putin has taken over, he's wanting a Stalin-like Russia by Stalin-like message. He's certainly gone that way recently, especially. How is the current Ukraine invasion different from 2014? Sasha's responding on that one. I guess I'm not sure what your question really is. I mean, first of all, obviously the intent was much larger, right? Then they were going into Crimea and their intent seemed to be just to stop at Crimea. This time, because they came in from, and they're still there, but from 4 different fronts, okay? And again, my hands might be backwards to you guys, but I will put this up and it's probably backwards, but I apologize. But assume that I'm going to tell you the directions. Assume this is Ukraine. The northwest of Ukraine is Belarus. The northeast of Ukraine up above is Russia. Kyiv is just a little bit down here. They came in through Belarus in the northwest. They came in through Russia to hit the town of Kharkiv. Remember how they're destroying Kharkiv, second largest city in Ukraine, Russian speaking, coming in through there. They came in on the east, the southeast, through those 2 independent states that aren't independent states, but where Russia has been funding a guerrilla movement for years, a movement to break free, but by basically terrorism. So they came in through there. And Crimea, the territory in 2014 that they absconded with, that they stole from Ukraine and now claim as Russia, they came in through there too. So they've got 4 different fronts they're coming through, which made a lot of people think that at the very least, they were planning on taking half the country. If you look from Kyiv, and I'm forgetting if it is the Dnipro River, what the river's called. No, that's probably not Dnipro there, but there's a main river going through Kyiv that goes all the way to the south of the country. I think the concern a lot of folks had was they were going to take all of southern Ukraine, Odessa on the west. Now we're on the border of the Black Sea here, okay? Odessa on the west, all the way over until you get to the territories Russia claims are independent, and then Russia. So they were going to take that, and they were going to take half the country all the way up to Kyiv, the capital. So I mean, I don't know if I'm saying anything obvious, but very different in that regard. And I think that's why you're seeing also a stronger reaction now. I wish there'd been a stronger reaction last time, but unfortunately, we let him get away with it because it was only 1 chunk of land he took, right? And we let the guy get away with it, which is horrible. Hope that gives a good enough answer. Let me see. I know there's a couple here. Does Russia really have the power and equipment to do this to another country? I assume you mean after Ukraine. We see them losing with Ukraine already. Well, they don't now, right? They certainly don't now. I mean, he's insane. They're already talking about, and I mentioned this, I think, on last night's show, Russia's already beginning to bomb Odessa, which is in the southwest. This is going to be a fifth front in the war that it looks like they're doing. They're looking to, it looks like they're going to have an amphibious landing there, just like the Nazis did, or we did, excuse me, with the Nazis on D-Day. As you know, with D-Day in World War II, incredibly dangerous, incredibly deadly, sending troops to land on beaches. So the Russians are opening up a fifth front now in an incredibly dangerous front on a beach, and then they're threatening other countries. Now, at the same time, I was going to mention this a little later as a good news, so to speak, but Transnistria, I'm not even sure what the correct way is to describe it, but it's a territory of Moldova that the Russians have been causing a lot of trouble in. I'll leave it at that. There are Russian peacekeepers in the territory, and the Moldovans basically told them to get out. They said, get out of Transnistria. At the same time, the Japanese are playing games I say playing games, but meaning tweaking the Russians by reiterating that some disputed islands called the Kuril Islands, northern Japan off of Russia, are Japanese. So you're seeing all of a sudden other places get a little gutsier and a little more backbone in terms of standing up to Russia on these disputes. No, Russia can't afford to go after another country. They can't. And going after Bosnia, forget it. I mean, they're going to bomb Bosnia, which is, again, pretty much just north of Greece, just east of Italy, just, I guess, southeast of Austria. But, I mean, way too close to NATO country. Well, actually, and some of the NATO countries surrounding it. There's no way. There's no way. But, again, I think he's becoming nuttier and nuttier. Sorry, scroll down. Another question. Brittany, good question. What do you think will happen if Russia captures, kills Zielinski? I think they're incredibly stupid if they kill him. I sort of said before, fortunately, we don't have enough viewers that I'm worried about giving Russia advice, but it would be wiser for them to capture him and to put him away quietly until the war is over. He is the mascot of this war. He is the Winston Churchill. He is the unifying figure. He's a revolutionary figure, this man, clearly for Ukrainians, but also for the international community. I mean, it's funny, I get chills telling you about it. He's inspired. I don't mean to speak goofy about it, but he's inspired all of us too, right? I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree with me on that. This guy, we all kind of worship the guy a bit now. So killing him would be a huge mistake. I don't know what NATO would do, because NATO seems to always want to put out the fact that we're really afraid of Russia, so I wonder, but huge mistake for the Ukrainians. I don't think it will break their backbone. I think it means they're going to kill every single Russian they see in Ukraine, like every single civilian if they kill Zielinski. So again, smarter would be to kidnap him and put him away, and don't put him on trial, because if they let loose that they're going to put him on trial for being a Nazi or whatever it is, again, I first of all, Europe may cut off all of its oil entirely to Russia, which would be an immediate disaster for Russia. I mean, I just think it's going to take it to a whole other higher level. The question becomes, so much of this war doesn't make sense. Even the fact that the Russians just had a horrible plan going in, it seems, that who knows what kind of stupid thing they'd do next, right? Just like we talked about Bosnia or another country. So they could be dumb enough to do it. Another question. Sasha question, huh? Puppy snack fun for Sasha. There you go. Oh, thank you, Shannon. Thank you. I promise afterwards she'll get a treat. You will be, or maybe if she wakes up, I gotta see where she is. Oh, she's back in her bed. If you have really good eyesight, you can see right there is my dog hiding under her giant red blanket on her bed. But we talk about the dog in the after show. Afterwards, 8 o'clock ish, we'll just hang out a bit and chat, fun like so. Okay, another question. All right. I promise you guys, if you buy the questions, I will answer them immediately, and then I'll get back to because it still is the substance. Biden said if an American was killed, there would be repercussions. However, an American has been killed, and I haven't heard of any consequences. Excellent point, Kendra. I would have to see Biden's exact question or his exact point. I do know the U.S. has been saying from the beginning, we do not want American citizens going there. Oh, and Randy, thank you for the super sticker. I don't know if I saw that. Thank you. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is Biden could have been, I wonder whether he was talking about whether if Americans got engaged in the war there, if our troops were fighting and an American died, there would be grave repercussions, right? That it would have, it would just be a major escalation if any of our troops died. I doubt he was talking about civilian volunteers. I mean, he wouldn't say go ahead and kill them, but we made clear, I've even seen it on TV, we made clear if you go on your own, you're on your own. The government doesn't want you going. I'm happy that people go, but the government doesn't want you American citizens going and fighting just freelance, and that if they get caught, they're not covered. We will not be defending them. We will not be fighting for them. I think that's BS. I'm sure we'll be defending them and fighting for them, but nonetheless, that's so I don't think nothing will happen officially, but because the story is so sympathetic, and as I said, this guy, James Whitney Hill, I don't want to call him this guy. I feel bad because he died. James Whitney Hill, Mr. Hill, was there helping his poor partner who has serious multiple sclerosis, was in the hospital with a serious operation. He was her caregiver. He stayed because of love to take care of her, and they opened up on civilians with artillery and killed him. That ain't a great story for the Russians. And I think that's the kind of story that will at least harden Americans even more, not harden, but piss people off even more to what's going on. So you do have an incremental ire of the Americans going up. And I think we're going to see this across the board. I've said from the beginning, I don't want to say worried or hopeful, I don't know which, that we are going to be forced to get involved, I think militarily, because Putin's going to go too far. And part of going too far may simply be the horrific atrocities he does to civilians. And I think this story is just one other example that's raising the temperature one step more towards boiling, is what I would say. One moment. Randy, thank you. Casey or Carrie? Carrie, excuse me, Carrie B. Do you trust NATO? That's funny. And how they're handling this. Yes. And okay, I trust NATO. Yes. It's not really an issue of trust. NATO and Biden in particular have done an amazing job on the sanctions. Okay. And Biden in particular, I think he was dealing with a situation where all of us, I suspect, thought that there was no way NATO was going to do the kind of things NATO has done. Right. I mean, the sanctions have been out of control good. Getting Europe and America to agree on the SWIFT banking sanctions, for example. Initially, we heard Germany, Italy, Hungary, and Cyprus were against it. The next day, all four countries turned around. And that to me means, my guess is Biden called them. My guess is Biden also may have offered things in exchange. I think as much as Biden, I like Biden. I don't think Biden has a lot of charisma going nowadays, but he still has the wheeling, dealing foreign policy expertise that is amazing for what he needs to do right now. So that's been great. My concern is I just don't like, and I keep hearing NATO people say this. I've heard our own president say this. I just wish they would stop talking about World War III and nuclear war. I think it is a Russian talking point. Yes, it's a possibility. It's always a possibility when dealing with a nuclear state that we're getting involved in a proxy war, in this case, a war through another party, or a real war, but Russia is trying to scare us. That doesn't mean Putin's not nuts, but he is using these phrases and he's talking this way, and he's even mentioning Bosnia because he's trying to scare us. And I think when we repeat their language, when we say it's going to be World War III if we get involved, not only are we scaring our own people and repeating his message, but I worry that once Putin crosses the big line, and maybe the big line is chemical weapons or biological weapons or even a tactical nuclear weapon, which would be like a small nuke. I know there's no small nukes, but a smaller nuke that you might use in the field, not something to blow up an entire city. Even if Putin does that, I worry that our own leaders keep saying we can never get involved militarily or it's the end of the world. So why would we get involved militarily if Putin does biological or chemical attacks on Kyiv and kills millions of Ukrainians? We still, according to our leaders, it'll be the end of the world if we get involved militarily, right? Well, I don't want the end of the world. So that on that side, I'm not thrilled about NATO, and I would say even Biden, how he's handling it. But ridiculous, the cooperation, amazing, the Germans, what they did with their defense budget and allowing the sales of weapons. I mean, historic turnaround for Germany since World War II. The Swiss, God bless them, on the banking sanctions. I think there has been, and even Hungary's run by a kind of wannabe Putin, wannabe dictator autocrat, Orban. Even he sided with us about the SWIFT banking sanctions and has been critical of Putin. I mean, he's clearly they're a part of NATO and he's been a good NATO ally. So, I'm not going to knock him, but, some concerns. I'm happy to keep doing questions because they're always good questions anyway. And honestly, they cover a lot of the same topics. Have there been any stirrings regarding deposing Putin? I heard he was worried about Shoigu. I don't know what Shoigu is. Sorry. Now, having said that, he's arrested several people, like a couple intelligence people, a general or somebody. I just read literally before I came out here that there was news that he had arrested this general. The intelligence services had taken him in, and then the latest story I saw that he might have been fired. So Putin and it was two intelligence chiefs that he went after as well, blaming them for giving him bad information. And of course, they probably gave him they gave him the information he wanted to hear, the good stuff, and B, if they told him the right information, he ignored them and went in anyway. As far as deposing, I think some of that. I'm sure that crackdown we are hearing about is to find a scapegoat. He's trying to find someone to blame, but also he's trying to I would wonder whether any of those guys were people that he worried might actually come out and go, I didn't tell him to do this. I told him to do something else totally different than Putin did this. So there's been no other news though on anybody. Nobody's talking seriously about expecting a coup or anything. The one thing I'll warn about coups is, just like the U.S. going into Iraq the second time. First time I was okay. Second time was a lie. But you always have to be worried about who comes next. Even in democracies, you got to worry about who comes next. But when you are overthrowing a dictator like Saddam Hussein in Iraq, you've got to know who's coming next because you might get somebody just as bad or worse. And with Putin, he's pretty bad, but we need to make sure some hardline lunatic doesn't come in. And I'm not sure the U.S. can guarantee that. In any case, but no, I haven't seen anything more about deposing him other than, like I said, he's starting to lop off heads at the top, military especially. Hang on a second here. Look at you guys with all your questions. Oh yeah, servant of the people. So I have mixed emotions about this. Actually, feel free to weigh in the comments what you guys think. President Zielinski of Ukraine, as you know, comedian, actor, winner at Dancing with the Stars. He won the 2006 competition of the Ukrainian version of Dancing with the Stars. I posted the video in my TikTok. It's fabulous. There's like 8 or 10 different costume changes of, like Matador, Spy. I mean, they're just kitschy and hilarious. And he's great. I mean, if you love the guy already, you're going to love this. Well, his comedy TV show he was on, Servant of the People, I'm going to trust you, that's the name, on Netflix just put up, and it is the series in which Zielinski is a comedian who, whether it's a joke or whatever, ends up running for president and wins, which is his life story, but he hadn't planned on that, and the series is about that. It's apparently very funny, and Netflix, I guess, capitalizing on the moment, but also, frankly, why not give the world a little bit of levity? I've got to watch it. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I just saw today that it came out. So it's called Servant of the People on Netflix. So if you got Netflix or have a friend there, check it out. But at first I didn't like it. At first I almost thought Netflix was making fun of him. And then I started warming to it going, knowing Zielinski and how much everything this guy does endears him to us more, this will be one more thing that probably the Russians wished would make him look silly, and it makes all of us go, oh. So I suspect he's in good stead. Let's see this. Russia doesn't want NATO on their borders, right? That's what they're saying, except that, of course, Russia's on NATO's borders, so it kind of works both ways. What about Estonia, Latvia? That's exactly the problem. The women of the world would go for Putin if anything happens to Zielinski. Oh, I don't think that. Women of the world, I don't think women of the world will go for Putin. I don't think. I mean, in all seriousness, I can't imagine. First of all, the guy's 5'7". I say this as a 5'9.5" Greek. I forget. I knew what I was in centimeters. Am I 170, 171, maybe? I forget how many. I used to know how many centimeters I was. I don't recall now, but 5'9.5" in English, in American. But 5'5", a guy who's 5'7" is not. Oh, having said that, Zielinski's short. I shouldn't even say that. Zielinski's short too, actually. So maybe. The bigger issue is Putin is claiming it's about NATO. Everybody who knows the issue says, kind of BS that he's claiming it's NATO. When the Soviet Union dissolved, the 15 republics became free. I mean, the one Russia, of course, was kind of coordinating the whole thing anyway. But a number of them are not free, obviously. But Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia in the north, the Baltic countries as they're called, not to be confused with the Balkans. I always used to hate those. The Balkans, which are the northern Greece and those countries, Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia. But the Baltics, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, were part of the Soviet Union. They are now free and independent. They were independent before. They are members of NATO. They're members of the EU. And they are very worried about the Russians coming in, and Putin especially coming in and just trying to take them back. And that actually, because they're a little, you'd have to look at the map, they're a little distant from the rest of NATO, and they're right on the border with Russia, that Russia probably could come in and take them. And then it would be hard for NATO to get it back. It would be a big war. Again, saying he's on their border, there was a really interesting quote by, senior former U.S. official, I think general on CNN the other night. And he says he was talking to the Russian foreign minister in the 1990s. And the foreign minister made some comment about, NATO expanding or whatever, because a lot of the former Soviet countries wanted to, and they did, they wanted to join NATO, and they did, including not just former parts of the Soviet Union, but countries that were part of the Warsaw Pact, which was Russia's sphere of influence, but actually they were a bunch of hostages, Eastern Europe, right? Poland, Hungary, East Germany, now part of Germany, Romania, they've all become part of NATO. They were basically hostages to the Soviet Union. Well, I'm trying to think why I was mentioning this with all of these guys. Bothering me. I was going off on a tangent. Now I'm forgetting. Anyway, I know what it was. The story. Really quick, I'll finish the story and then we'll do the other questions. So the American general was on TV, former general. He says, I'm talking to the Russian foreign minister. He's complaining about NATO expansion. He goes, and I told him, NATO has secured your border to the west. Now you need to worry about the real threat, which is coming from your east. And the general turns to him and said, the foreign minister turns to him and says, how did a general get to be so smart? In other words, by welcoming in the former Soviet countries and former Soviet bloc countries who wanted to join NATO, we were ensuring that they were joining a bloc of countries that was pro-democracy, but also democratic internally. Part of NATO's rules are that you're a country that doesn't just get into war. You are a country that settles disputes peacefully, unlike, for example, Russia, where every year they're in another war, they're in these lingering wars. So his point was that by these countries joining NATO, we're actually kind of, I don't want to say this in a condescending way, but we're helping guarantee that they're not just going to turn into some post-Soviet crazy state, that they're actually joining the League of Good Nations kind of thing. So anyway, that's my long explanation on the NATO thing. Daniel, love to see you every night. Oh boy, I know about them. So Daniel says, right, could you explain the Azov battalion? Are they neo-Nazis? Their symbol looks pretty Nazi. They seem to be kicking ass against Russia. The Azov battalion, these are the people that Putin claims they're Ukrainians. It's a Ukrainian group. I shudder to say far right, but they're certainly right because I'm not an expert on them. I don't want to smear them, but I also don't want to minimize if they're a far right group. But they are a clearly nationalist group. The Russians hate them. The Russians call them Nazis. But to be honest, the Russians also claim that Zielinski and his government was a Nazi government. So, give me a break, right? Zielinski being Jewish, 3 family members died in the Holocaust. Give me a break. So I'm going to put it on my list to do more research and see if I can get sort of just to get an unbiased opinion. I'll do that it will not be tomorrow, and I'll tell you about that at the end, but I've got to get I always tell people it's not cosmetic, but I've got to get some surgery on my nose. There's a problem with the breathing or something. And it's happening tomorrow afternoon, which means there's no way in hell I'm going to want to be doing a broadcast tomorrow because I'm going to be in pain. I just have to see the weekend how I'm feeling. So I will put out an update. I will put it on I'll do it like I always do. I'll put it on my TikTok and I will put it on YouTube when I'm feeling like I think I'll be okay. Maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, but we'll see. But I will put a lot of updates tomorrow morning, but after I go to the thing in the afternoon, there's no way I can do more of this. But I've got Azov on my list. And I want to see if they're actually Nazis or not. Meaning, are they really troublesome? You do get into I will say this, you get into a fascinating discussion of, in wartime, my enemy's enemy is my friend, right? In World War II, the Russians were, non-aggression pact, at least with the Germans. I don't want to say they were working with the Germans, but they weren't exactly allies to the Allies, right? And then Russia joins us and turns. Well, the communist Russia under Stalin was horrific. at that point, he had already killed tens of millions of people. We worked with him to defeat the Nazis because it was a greater threat. I would imagine, let's say, country X that's really bad takes over America, and we've got to, everybody come together to fight them. As long as I can trust someone, I would work with them. And some of the best people at doing nasty things might be nasty people. I mean, now we're talking about literally what's happening in you. I'll just say if I was a Ukrainian, if I'm there right now, I am not going to be doing a purity test on anybody. My only purity test is, can I trust you? Are you a loyal Ukrainian or loyal ally, but not, are you a murderer? Were you in jail, or were you with this far right group? And is the far right group Nazi or not? Personally, I would be like, you know what? It's existential survival. We win to fight another day, and when we're done, if you are a Nazi, I'm throwing your ass in jail. But or assuming one can, of course, in America, our free speech laws don't allow us to do that simply because someone's a Nazi. They have to break the law. So that's my take on it overall. But it's an interesting question because the Russians keep using it as an example. Actually, I'll make the final point here. The Russians claimed, I think I already mentioned this, that I did mention it, that theater that was bombed, that had 1,300 people, at least they're saying 1,300 people in it, in Chernihiv, that theater was actually bombed by the Ukrainian Nazis. And they're claiming this Azov battalion were the ones who bombed it. So clearly the Russians have grabbed onto it, but it's kind of BS. I mean, maybe there's a far-right group and maybe there's far-right groups in Ukraine. My guess is they're not in cahoots with the Jewish president. That's my guess. Kelly, thoughts on the prisoner swap? Well, okay. The one mayor, we know, I reported on this yesterday, one mayor seems to have been freed. Oh, we have movement. All right, I'm going to move my camera a little just because maybe you'll get little shots of her. Sasha's in the back. One of the mayors was freed yesterday, and we found out that it was actually the Ukrainians that freed him. A lot of us thought that it was perhaps, the Russians, not out of the kindness of their hearts. We were kind of wondering why the Russians would free the guy. The mayor was freed by some mission by the Ukrainians. Amazing. I have not seen any current talk about a prisoner swap with the Russians, and there was at least one other. I want to say there's two other mayors that are still being held captive, but also the Russians are grabbing more local officials. I was just reading another short story this was probably on the Kiev Independence website, a very good English language paper in Kiev. I always call it the Kiev, and I know it's Kiev, but I learned about the Kiev Independent years ago, and I know its name as Kiev Independent. So sorry about that. The Kiev Independent, KYIV, excellent English language paper in Ukraine. And they link to other content, which is great because they will sort of siphon up the good stories from around the web, like the best stories from Reuters, from everybody, but also they have their own content. In any case, I believe there was a story there that said that the Russians are continuing to kidnap local officials and replace them with their own stooges, their own puppets. I don't know about any prisoner exchanges yet, and it gets complicated because the Ukrainians are going to want their own soldiers too. They're not just going to want the mayors returned, so who knows what's going to happen. I didn't hear anything unless you did. That's another one that actually I'll write down just to pay attention to tomorrow. But there have been no articles that I saw today and nothing on the news about prisoner swaps yet. I think it's probably early. But maybe, actually, I don't know if MT is here tonight, but he seems to be our resident war expert, or anybody else who is. Do prisoner swaps ever happen this early in a war? Or not? Is it just too soon? All right, going down. More questions. Hang on, guys. I just have to get the super. Thank you, super sticker, Erica Jade. You are sweet. All right. Oh, hold on. I've got to be able to read your name. A super sticker. Thank you, but Kayla Greer. Thank you, Kayla. That was super sweet of you. Here's another one, I think. What about the supposed call to duty of all the medical people in Russia? I didn't see that, but I'm not surprised. They've got a lot of casualties. And I mean, casualties is a military term that I almost hate in civilian life because we think of casualties as deaths. They think of casualties as dead and injured. But there are a lot. The U.S. is estimating 7,000 dead and saying that is exceedingly conservative. The number of wounded was twice that. So let's say if the dead, if he's saying exceedingly conservative, that makes me think it's 2 or 3 times. Let's say it's 15,000. That means they could have 30,000 wounded. Now what happens, and I do know about this, I was reading up on this, because the Russians are having such a hard time with manpower, right? They didn't bring enough troops. And when I say troops, I mean everybody. They brought like 160,000 troops, but of that 160,000, what I'd heard was only 70,000 were active duty, what do I want to call them? Fighters, so to speak. I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for. The other people are drivers, cooks, medics, engineers, right? All the support people. But so they got 70,000 fighters. Well, it is quite possible they don't have enough medics because these are people who thought the plan was, apparently, that they were going to go into Kyiv and take it in 3 days. And they brought enough food, as we know. They don't have any more food other than what they brought with them. That convoy, forget it. The 40-mile convoy is going nowhere. It's just getting blown up now. Their logistics has been so bad, food, fuel, ammunition, refilling the ammunition supplies, that this is part of the reason they're just blowing up civilians now. They don't have anything. They don't have the manpower and they don't have the weapons to do anything else but blow up civilians, right? So when you get to the medical problem, I guarantee you they didn't bring enough medics. And what happens, and this was very sad and interesting, I was reading, they have what they call the golden hour in the military. And basically the first hour after you are gravely injured is what decides whether you live or die. If you can get them to good medical attention, whether it's their medical hut, the MASH units or whatever they set up in Russia, that they set up, they would set it up behind their lines in Ukraine. If you get these people to medical help within the first hour, their chances of living go up like 2 or 3 times, like significantly higher. If it's after an hour, there's a good chance they're going to die. And you've got not only the dead, but you've got so many injured who don't have to die, who the experts are now saying are dying. Because again, if these guys had gotten help, had they gotten medical help right away, they'd be fine. And the Russians didn't prepare for it. But also, since the logistics lines are stopped, if there's more doctors or nurses or whatever, and more medical equipment coming down, it's stopped too, right? They can't reinforce fighting men. They also can't reinforce doctors because they can't get anybody to the front. So huge problem. So it could be, rather than an indication of Russia is going to, have a conscription like countrywide, basically a countrywide draft where everybody has to go in the war. They might, though, who knows, right? This could simply be a sign that they realize they screwed up. Their troops are dying because more are getting injured than they planned for, way more. And since they didn't plan for it, they don't have the doctors. And since they don't have the doctors, people are dying who wouldn't die otherwise. That's my take. More, you guys are killing me. I mean, I'm so glad you're putting the questions tonight, but you're killing me tonight on this. I'm glad you guys are into this. Oh, so it's the Shogi thing. Thank you. Sergei Shoigu, Minister of Defense. Oh, I'm sorry. I do not know the Russian Minister of Defense. I apologize. Yep. Oh, he never served? Get out of here. Well, the only thing I will say, although I doubt Russia works like America in this way. In our military, we want a civilian to be the head of the military. That doesn't mean that they haven't served. And often I think you're probably in better stead picking somebody with military service, right? To serve in the military, but we always want a civilian head. It is rare. I mean, this time we have a former, we did actually know under Trump, we had a former general, and I'm pretty sure our current Secretary of Defense, I know he's former military. I'm pretty sure he's former general too. That is unusual. And it's often frowned upon in our country because we want a strict delineation between the civilian leadership and the military leadership of the military. So the Secretary of Defense in our country, Minister of Defense, is always a civilian, always. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the military head of our military. Colin Powell had that job a long time ago. Currently, it's General Milley. So there's always a delineation. Now, I guess I would have to know. I mean, you can tell us too, Doc, if you know, whether in Russian history, is it unusual to have someone who is the Minister of Defense who didn't serve? Now, World War II would be the obvious example. The only thing is, at some point, you get too young. I mean, now the World War II generation, my God, right? You'd have to be a dinosaur. Remember the Soviet? I think they used to call the Russians the old men dinosaurs in Russia. You'd have to be incredibly old now to have served in World War II. But you still could have served in Afghanistan. You could have served in other places. So just scrolling down. I haven't seen. I saw. Because the Russians, as I recall, we were using Russian rockets to get to the space station and back. Maybe Elon can help us. The International Space Station. I did see that the Mars mission that we were working on the Russians with just suspended the Russians, or whatever you want to call it. But the Russians are at least temporarily kicked out of the Mars mission. The space station, I believe what you're saying is there was a threat by the Russians. I'll write this down on my list for sort of more things to look at, space station. But the Russians were at least threatening. There was a threat that they would leave our astronauts behind on the space station since they were the means of transportation back and forth. My guess is it's a little too early to worry about that. That would be a real mess because it would be the kind of propaganda the Russians would love. And knowing Putin, he'd have no problem starving astronauts. But, excuse me. Let's see. Scrolling. Boom. Oh, okay. Oh! Lori, I'm sorry, you didn't have to pay extra to explain. Lori was explaining that she meant the women of the world would rip the out of Putin if he touches a hair on his head. Oh, if he touches a hair on Zielinski's head. Oh, yeah, go for it. I'm thinking you mean they go, like the women of the world would like Putin? That's a little weird. Oh, yeah, no, I think, hey, and a lot of men too, Lori. Oh, no, Zielinski has basically become a folk hero to everybody. I mean, I love the guy. And again, it's interesting because he's the example of, I do firmly believe that if you're going to get involved in politics at a senior level, at a federal level, so this is a member of Congress, Parliament, whatever, prime minister, president, whatever, right, head of state, that it is very helpful to have a political background, at least at a senior level. Member of Congress, you can start out with that experience, but it's going to be very hard. President, way worse. I am a big fan of presidents and prime ministers having the political experience because you got to know. It's like me, the work I do in Washington. You've got to know the way things work. You've got to know how policy is really made. It's not made where the president says, we're going to do this, and it just happens. What are the bickering and the fighting between the different agencies? What are the constituent groups that you've got to worry about? Like for example, in America, we keep wanting to do things about drug prices, and the pharmaceutical companies are giving so much money to our politicians, right and left. Neither side is safe on this one. Democrats and Republicans both have been bought off by the big pharmaceutical drug companies so that you can't get anything done. You kind of need an experience in politics to do that. So somebody like Zielinski coming in, I would have thought would have been really tough for him to do a good job. What we have found is clearly he surrounds himself with good people because the execution of the war has been amazing according to our generals and our military experts. That means he picked the right people. It also means he's letting them do their job. He's able to make the correct decision under pressure. He's not somebody who's indecisive and the military's falling apart because the president's scared, right? And finally, he's a figurehead. And he is the right figurehead they needed at this time, which is also a skill. So I'm very surprised that he turned out to be all of these things, but maybe especially surprised that he ended up wooing the rest of the world because our love of Zielinski is making us much more supportive of Ukraine. And as you said, not only would the women of the world kick the bejesus out of Putin in response, I don't think it was maybe it was your question or about killing Zielinski. And actually the other person, or it was you, Lori, who said, would he kill Zielinski or would he capture him? What would he do? What should he do? Just that Zielinski has gotten inside of all of our heads so to such a degree in a good way that he's a superstar. He's a rock star now. And boy, you don't want to make that guy a martyr, which actually will get us to I've got the Arnold Schwarzenegger news I've got to give you too, because Arnold did some good stuff today. Ann Parker, considering the disrepair and old of the land equipment, do you feel that his nuclear arsenal, that's a damn good question, is not as powerful. So the argument, and I've seen this several days ago, a lot of people were asking, the Russian army has been so bad. And I mean, they're not only are they just seem to be bad at being a military, they don't know how to do logistics. And the logistics is food, fuel, water, armaments, bringing in more ammunition. It's like they don't even know how to do it. The way the convoys were spread out was idiotic. They were all too close to each other. So you could hit one with a bomb and hit like a bunch of them at the same time. Remember that tank convoy? I showed a video of it last week, but that tank convoy that was hit, that the Ukrainians hit, and they had the good video of it, and it showed God, it looked like 10 or 12 tanks, and they're all like side by side and right behind each other. So all you had to do was hit one tank, and you could hit the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks around it if it blows up, at least causing damage. Just stupid. I mean, even I know this, and I'm not a military guy. Stupid what they're doing. So you wonder. The last point, not the last point, but the other example I'll give you is the tires on the cars. A huge problem with the convoy is the Russians simply didn't keep up the tires they had on all of their vehicles in the convoy. They bought cheap Chinese tires, and the tires fell apart. B, tires being rubber and plastic, you've got to take care of them. You've got to keep them out of the sun. If they're in the sun, you have to rotate the position so the same wheels aren't getting sunlight so that you spread it around. B, put the vehicles in front of each other in the sunlight so that their shadow blocks the tires from getting sun, because these vehicles can be sitting there for months and months and months. Well, that long in the sun turns rubber into rock, or into glass, I should say. It turns it into a hard, if you've ever seen plastic, that it gets so hard that it just breaks, like cables you have around the home and stuff. So their tires are just breaking because they're so old. And whoever was in charge of the tires was an idiot. And a guy did a beautiful Twitter thread on this who actually was in charge of the tires for the U.S. military. And he just walked through everything wrong that they did. So with all of that, can you trust that their nuclear arsenal works? I mean, it's an interesting question. Obviously, you come down to, we have to assume it works. We can't take the risk and say, yeah, let's go for it. Let's hope his weapons don't work. I also wonder about, a lot of these weapons are decently old, and they're still, there's computers in them, but even computers break down, right? Actually, even the more modern ones. The old ones, there's wiring. The wiring can corrode or whatever, right? But with the newer ones, you've got computer things. You've got motherboards. I mean, all those computer parts. The motherboard on my fridge goes out every 10 years and clicks. On my computer, not so often, but the hard drive breaks every few years sometimes. And sometimes the motherboard breaks, and sometimes, a circuit. So there certainly is a possibility that something goes wrong, but, who knows? I guess I don't want to say the point is moot, but it almost is, in the sense that we cannot trust that this guy's missiles don't work, because he's not going to tell us. We have to believe that they work, and that potentially they could be used. Stella Black, thank you so much. Ha! Compare Putin with Pinochet and Ceausescu. Jesus Christ. Wow. So folks know Pinochet was the general dictator in Chile for years. Bad dictator, like all the dictators in South America, murderous dictator on the right, so to speak. Ceausescu, I want to say worse. I don't mean to knock any Chileans here or piss them off. I would argue Ceausescu's worse. Ceausescu was the villainous, murderous, horrific, sitting on his golden throne, letting everybody starve to death, dictator of Romania. Oh my God, this guy and his wife were horrific Soviet stooges, but again, wealthy and all of that, while people were dying around them. Horrific killings by this guy. And the public finally finally rose up. Ceausescu, I want to say, because I remember the day, I want to say Christmas Day 1989, that SOB got what came to him. And they lined him, and as they caught him, I don't even say the rebels, because the country rose up in revolution. They caught him and his wife. They threw him against a wall, and that was the end of that. Putin is not at Ceausescu level yet, because that would also be killing your civilians left and right. Stalin, got there. What people are comparing Putin to now is Stalin. They're saying that Putin has turned an autocratic country where you've got a powerful leader that is making things so that they're not really democratic, but it's not quite totalitarian yet, right? There was opposition press. I mean, they would kill them if they could. He tried to kill opposition leaders. He wouldn't let the opposition on the ballot, for example, but there still was sort of opposition media that have all now fled the country, right? Because now it's become a totalitarian state. And again, people are comparing him to Stalin, partially because there was a broadcast yesterday where Putin was talking about needing to cleanse the country. It was really creepy. And he just did it again today. I read it, I listened, or I saw the transcript of it today. He went just more kooky, crazy, paranoid Putin, talking like Stalin, purging and cleaning the country. It's it's getting into scary stuff. And again, you can sort of get into Pinochet and the Argentine dictators with that because they felt they were purging the country of the leftist communists, and they did. I mean, they killed a lot of people, a lot of innocent people. I know more Argentina because I had done a lot of research there because I worked there for a summer at the U.S. Embassy. So I knew more about Argentina, but I know it was a similar issue, obviously, with Pinochet. So, they all have their negatives, obviously. But I think, Putin but again, he does kill his political dissidents, and he does throw people off of balconies, and he does kill journalists. So, now Putin, forget it. Now we're entering Soviet days of Russia again. Now I would say. So scrolling down. I know I got more. I can see them at the top of the screen, but I'm trying to find the question itself because if I find the question, I can post it for everyone to see, which is much nicer. Hang on, and I think it's nicer for you guys if you do this. Oh, Piotr. Always love to see Piotr, who I always guess is Polish because I see the PLN or not. No, I know you're Polish. Are you? If you're in Poland, that's very cool. I don't know if you're in Poland. Russia's lost already 4 generals. That's what I'd heard. Yeah, 3 for sure, and then a 4th one has been reported. I read today. 1 DNR general, 1 Chechen general. Nice to see the Chechens, and not even in 3 weeks. Correct. What could be the reason for them losing so many of them? Well, okay, absolutely on troop morale. I saw a report on this today. Actually, it was. Interestingly enough, it was Ambassador McFaul, who was the U.S. ambassador to Russia, very intelligent, very well-educated guy, knows Russia. And the Russians made his life living hell when he was our ambassador under Obama to Russia. But McFaul was saying that it is unheard of to lose 4 generals and to lose them this early. I mean, he said for Russia, unheard of to have this level of losses. Now, what he had said was the Russians had sent somewhere between 20 and 22 generals into battle. That, and the way their military works, but also because of the morale problems, separate from the generals getting killed, he said that they were probably putting generals up to the front in the battle. Normally the generals are at least a little bit back to try to be with the troops to get the morale going because the troops are getting killed in large numbers. The troops were lied to. A lot of them were told they were going on training exercises. They were never told they were going to fight in Ukraine. The troops were lied to and told the country was being run by Nazis. And one of the soldiers, Russian soldiers, in one of the videos they did, he was talking and he said, they told me the country was a dictatorship run by Nazis. And I believe the translation was, he said, I walked across the border, or we came across the border, and we're in a little town that looks like home. And I look through and I can hear people listening to the professional boxing match that I watch, and they're like doing the same thing I do. And he goes, they're not Nazis. And they got really pissed off. He goes, they got really angry at us and yelled at us and said, go home, get out of our country. And he said, and that was the 4th lie, that they said they'd be welcoming us. They'd be welcoming us as liberators. He goes, they keep telling us to go home. So morale has been horrible. But McFaul's final point was that morale was going to be even worse losing the 4 generals. Again, I thought it was 3. It is 4, but I wasn't sure whether the 4th was confirmed or not yet. Really bad. Yeah. I mean, again, one of those good news, bad news things where you're like, good news, but, it's war. Nobody wants deaths, obviously. But nonetheless, you don't want to lose your generals. It's just a horrible message. What will it take for the U.S. to get involved? Our government says not at all. I mean, U.S. and NATO says no. They've said if the Russians use chemical or biological or nuclear weapons, there will be severe repercussions. I should say chemical and biological, they've said severe repercussions. I've not seen what they've said about nuclear yet. I don't know whether they've kept that one quiet and told the Russians privately, you do that and, it's World War III. It is World War III. But on the chemical and biological, we have said, quote unquote, severe repercussions. But what's worried me about that is we say it at the same sentence that we tell them, but we'll never get involved militarily taking you on. I mean, unless you start it. Like if you invade NATO, we'll get involved. But if you stay within Ukraine, we're not going to fight you militarily because that would be World War III and the end of the world. So once again, like I said, as long as the Russians keep their carnage within Ukraine, I fear NATO is going to say, World War III, we won't get involved no matter how many civilians he kills. Even if Putin were to take a World War II route, let's just put it that way. The position of the Germans back in World War II. If he started doing similar things, would we really not get involved because it's just within Ukraine and there'd be World War III? Having said all of that, and I said it at the beginning of the show, my gut still tells me that at some point the American people are going to have had it. And even though right now, I think the population was split pretty much 50-50, like people don't really want us to go to war. They don't want us to go to war, but at the same time, they're super pissed at what Russia's doing. And I think they're going to demand more and more action. So the tightrope all of our governments are walking is, once there's more and more atrocities, how do you make clear to your people that you're doing something without going to war? And I don't know that we can keep doing that tightrope. But I mean, I certainly think if any of those weapons are done, at the very least, we would have to bomb, and they've talked about this on the news actually, but we would have to bomb, something related to the chemical weapon that got dropped, whether it's the battalion, whoever, the group, the Russian military group that the bomb was associated with or something, but we would have to get involved somehow. We'd have to. But I suspect at this point, it's either going to be chemical, biological that crosses the line, or, by the way, keep an eye on the nuclear plants. They were trying to blow up the nuclear plants. I mean, all the evidence suggests they were trying to blow up the nuclear plants. Chernobyl, Zaporizhia. I think there's I know there are about Chernobyl, mind you, is decommissioned, of course, right? That's the big nuclear meltdown. But Zaporizhia, and I think 3 others. I think they've got probably like 4. They were around the country like this, kind of as a square. 4 nuclear plants in Ukraine. And we know the Russians were trying to blow up Chernobyl, and we know they were trying to blow up Zaporizhia. They were firing at it. They were trying to blow it up. They wanted a nuclear disaster. And they keep making threats about a nuclear disaster. Which makes everybody worry that and blaming it on the Ukrainians. Oh, again, this Avaz battalion or whoever is going to attack and blow up the nuclear plants to hurt everybody. And the fact that the Russians are warning it is making people think the Russians are going to do it. And the White House has already warned just that. They are concerned that Russia's language is suggesting Russia is preparing for a chemical or biological attack. Well, actually, that was the same. I was just going to say, and D, there you answered. I think I just answered your question anyway. Yeah. I mean, the initial response would be, okay, it's going to depend how strong the attack is. If it's a chemical attack, but it kills as many people as a mortar shell and 10 people die, then we send one bomb, not chemical. We send one bomb in, hitting some Russian military. And I would guarantee you that we would intend to kill as many people as they killed. So if they only kill 10 people, we would try to kill 10 troops, something like that. But I guarantee you we would try to do a measured response that was equal so that there's at least a chance the Russians would say, at least privately, okay, tit for tat. But there you go. But I answered the rest of it there anyway, really, I think. CB, good to see you again. Who I think is Casey. I think it's Casey. Yeah, you've signed your question, so I don't think I'm outing you to anybody. Science News has had a few articles about how lots of joint science, including the ESA Mars rover, have been installed. Okay, it was the Mars project that I saw today. Yeah, what I don't know is what the latest is on the astronauts on the space station, or anybody on the space station for that matter, depending where they're from. Because I know initially there was at least some talk that the Russians were threatening people about leaving them up there. And again, maybe Elon Musk can help. Who knows? I mean, you can't just pull something like that out of your. Since we don't have the shuttle anymore, it's not as quick. And again, I'm scrolling down, guys, just to find the super chat. Since I said I would give those priorities. Have the Russians ever been subject to nuclear inspections like Iran? I don't know about like Iran, but yes. What was the last we've done able to verify their quantity? That's a good question. I don't know about that. I mean, I had worked on nuclear policy back when I was on Capitol Hill working for the senator, but this is 1989 to 1994. I had to have clearances and everything for it. And I remember at the time, one of the issues was inspections regarding Krasnoyarsk and whether there were violations with the radar and all sorts of stuff. So I'm pretty sure we've had a history of inspections over the years. Now, who the hell knows? And again, I feel bad because I don't know. I don't know if anybody, again, I'll write myself a little note, but I don't know if anybody is sort of more of an expert on this that can say, have we been having nuclear inspections? Part of the problem, I think, becomes, I don't know whether they're doing anything like that right now, because the nuclear inspections, for example, often happened Krasnoyarsk was not nuclear. Krasnoyarsk was a radar, but that was, I believe, probably because of the ABM treaty, I'm guessing at the time, if I can remember. But the idea was there was a treaty limiting what we would do to make it easier to launch attack, to protect, and therefore whether it violated the treaty. I don't even know whether we've got nuclear inspections today with Russia. I'm sorry. I just don't know. But again, if somebody else is more of an expert on the nuclear thing and can weigh in, please do. Sorry, Catherine. All right, scrolling down, folks, as I do. Whenever you hear me not talking, I'm just scrolling down in the comments. I love how chatty you guys are, but man. Navalny. Prosecuted, I saw that. And so Navalny is the opposition leader who Putin poisoned repeatedly. Remember the once he got poisoned a couple of years ago, was on a plane. It had to get diverted to Berlin. And they saved his life miraculously in Berlin. And of course, he went right back to Russia because that's what he does. He's the opposition leader. They refused to put him on the ballot in the last elections. And then Putin found a way to jail him. And now they're, as Tara just said, the prosecutors have asked to up his prison term to 13 years. And, not the 2 that he's serving. So I'll finish reading your question just in case, but in a more secure prison, to limit his ability to communicate. Talking about Zielinski and Navalny. No, it's what amazes me, because I saw this with some other case in Russia in the last year. Somebody that they just went in and upped his sentence after he was already in jail. And it's not like they found new crimes or something. They just went back to the court and the court was like, yeah, we're giving you even more years. I mean, they can do that kind of stuff and it's really creepy. But yeah, Navalny, brave as hell, he's got his own demons. I mean, apparently, had some positions in the past that were kind of extreme or whatever. I mean, this is one of those things where, once again, I said, I'm not going to have purity tests when you're kind of talking about life and death situations in a country like Russia that is now is becoming Soviet totalitarian again. We need an opposition leader that people can rally around, and he ain't bad. He's got his warts, but he ain't bad. But yeah, it's horrific. Again, I'm surprised they haven't killed him in prison, to be honest. But like the other guy whose name I always forget, who they killed walking along the sidewalk outside the Kremlin, post it, please, because I don't want to not acknowledge him. Every time you guys put it up, I remember, but another opposition guy they just killed. I mean, clearly, it was a mugging, and he got murdered right outside the Kremlin. It was right along the river. He got Putin killed him. Hang on, guys. Someday I'm going to catch up with all of these. Well, like I said, if I don't, okay, this is the part of the show where I ask the moderators to make sure I didn't miss any of the questions. I finally caught up with your questions. You guys, boy, you amaze me today. No, I'm glad you're so into this. Oh, okay, and Doc threw another question in. Okay, and worst comes to worst, I've got more news, but honestly, you're getting just as much news out of the questions as this. Doc Remington, what a great name. I think it's a fake name. Oh, yeah. Evkaristo Parapoli. Sorry, signomi. Imakuras menos. Any thoughts regarding any potential involvement by Belarus? Lukashenko seems to have gotten cold feet and saying, good luck with the surgery. Yeah, it's small. It's a nose thing. It's a pain and there's blood and, it's invasive enough that they said, at least for several days, you'll need Tylenol with codeine. And I was like, oh, God, no. So, but thank you. It shouldn't be horrible. Oh, there is a question down there. I see. Okay, I will jump. Missed question. Thank you, MT. But let me first answer this with Doc, and then I know I have to look for MTs. I put a little star on it, so I'll go back to it. It's not a nose job. I am proud of my Greek nose. I would not have a nose job. Thank you very much. Please. So Belarus has been interesting. There's been okay, so Belarus, right? Putin stooge, Putin puppet, 100%. Lukashenko, dictator, horrific dictator. But so the Russians come in through Belarus as one of the fronts in their war, and their troops come down. Secondly, the Russians are reportedly using Belarus as one of the staging areas for their long-range artillery that's blasting into Ukraine. So they're sending the artillery from Belarus but into Ukraine to kill the civilians and everybody else. So you get into sort of a gray area of, is it the Belarus? I always say Belarusians. Is it the Belarusians? I'm not sure the correct way of saying it, but Belarus. So the question becomes, is it Belarus doing it? Is it Russia doing it? There was concern in the beginning I was hearing about whether Belarus was going to enter the war because, again, if you look at my very bad fake map of Ukraine, again, pretend this is Western Ukraine, which it is. Okay, I'll do it the opposite for you. Pretend this is Western Ukraine, which it is, and Belarus is up here. The concern was they actually sent troops through Belarus, and what happens? The troops try to cut off Western Ukraine all the way down to Odessa. And now what you do if you do that, I mean, it's, mind you, it comes in a curve. But the point is, if you can cut off Ukraine from Poland, Hungary, Romania, Slovenia, I think those are the 4 big NATO ones there. I think I got it right. You cut them off. How, and we can't fly in, how do you get the land in? How do you get the weapons in? How do you get all that in, right? So there was concern about that, but currently, from everything I'm hearing, the Belarusians hate Lukashenko. He's got a horrible approval rating, and people would go, bazonkers if he tried to settle up with Putin in terms of the actual war itself. I did also see today, which was nice, there was a video that there's somebody on Twitter who's really good. And he's the spokesman for the opposition leader, Svetlana, and I'm forgetting her last name. It was long. It was, sort of Slavic. But I had it in my notes and then I didn't include it. But he put out a video that there's a volunteer battalion from Belarus who's going to Mariupol in Ukraine to help, which is one of the really embattled towns that's been really blown up. They're going to help. So ironically, there is some Belarusian involvement, but from what we know, it's volunteers, and the volunteers are going to fight. I mean, they're not just volunteers to, help medics. Okay, sorry, going back to MTs. Here we go. Sorry about that. Missed question. Got it. Oh, from my favorite Irish woman, I'm guessing, whose name I have not seen pronounced yet. I love the Irish stuff, but I can never pronounce it. Russia cannot support a war on the Ukraine front. How will they support multiple fronts? That's exactly the question. I mean, they're doing a horrible job on multiple fronts. And by fronts, you simply mean different places that they've invaded, right? So they've got to worry about Belarus, the front there. They've got to worry about the front, all the troops coming at Kherson in the northeast. There's a whole different set of troops coming in from the east through those 2 territories in eastern Ukraine that Russia claims are independent states, but they're really not. They're regions where Russia has been paying separatists to blow things up basically for years. So that's a separate group of military. Then you've got another separate group of Russian troops coming in through Crimea. And now you probably have a 5th one coming in by sea. Each one has its own commanders. Each one has to have its own supply lines. And we know the supply lines stink for the Russians. And you're simply coordinating 5 different war fronts instead of 1 war front now. So like the larger generals in charge are having to coordinate 5 different things at once, as is Putin. So people think it's really dumb. They thought it was really dumb just to get into the, I think I was telling you this, the General Hertling, I believe, was saying that it was incredibly stupid. God, he even threw in a quote. I forgot what it was, but basically said Putin is a military idiot for what he's doing. That he would start a 5th war by going after Odessa by sea, which is a horrific thing to do, to try to land amphibiously like they did in D-Day. When at the same time he's got the 4 others. So you are correct. They can't keep it going, and the question then becomes: are there threats to Bosnia? Are the threats to the Baltic states that they're always making? That they made threats to Poland too, I think. Are they really legit when they don't even seem to be doing a very good job fighting the war as it is? Now, I guess if they went nuts and literally did a draft for every man between 18 and 60, and literally the whole country goes to war, they could, but it seems pretty idiotic, because then, what happens with Japan? What happens out there? And frankly, what happens with China? Does China end up siding with them? Or does China end up saying, you know what? I got to worry about my economic future, and I got news for you. Russia is nobody's economic future. The West is. Asia is. The rest of Asia. So yes, apologize. I did not see that. I was doing so well, too. I was very proud of myself. I went back and thought I saw all of you guys. Up, here we go. Well, that's the question. Is China increasing or decreasing their support? They've been going back and forth. There was language earlier this week of them supporting the Ukrainians, saying that they would never go to war they would never go to war against Ukraine. They would support it economically. Then at the same time, the Russians are asking for military help and economic help, including meals from the Chinese. The Chinese get asked about it and say, first we've heard, and they literally say this on the record, we didn't hear about this, which sounds very much a negative. It sounds like they're kind of dissing the Russians. Then we get word that yesterday that the Chinese are actually considering this, that they're considering giving even military supplies to the Russians. Then today, the White House comes out and says that there is high concern that the Chinese are going to provide weapons, which means the U.S. has intelligence suggesting that that the deal is being done, whether it's done or is about to be done, that the Chinese are about to agree to give the weapons, which may be the reason for Biden calling tomorrow with Xi, the Chinese premier. He's having a Zoom call, or whether this just is happening at the same time. But my suspicion is Biden said it's about other issues as well, but clearly this is the big issue. Who knows? Somebody had weighed in yesterday who said they were born in China, and his advice, I think, was follow the money. In essence, he said China wants the money. China is worried about its economy. Wherever they get their money from, that's what they're gonna side with. And to some degree, Biden may need to make it lucrative enough for China, at least economically. Militarily, we can't, because we're never going to side with China over Taiwan. But maybe economically, we can strike some deal or something that gets the Chinese. Because if China came out against Russia, they did abstain in the Security Council when there was voting. That was good. I mean, they didn't vote with Russia to veto the Security Council resolution, so that's good. But no, I think China's been I would say, since we're trying to read tea leaves, China's been waffling all week. And today, at least from the White House, there's extreme concern that China may finally be throwing its lot in with Russia. And again, we don't need Chinese weapons there, because the administration already threatened China too and said there would be severe repercussions for China if they provide weapons. And does that mean sanctions? And if it becomes sanctions, do we now have a whole round of trade sanctions across Asia and America? I mean, you're looking at a trade war if that happens. That I don't think is good for any of us economically, certainly. Boop. MT from Lori Keene. Do you know if they're able to get food into Kyiv? I don't know about Kyiv, but a lot of cities have been cut off, and they're starving them for a couple of weeks now. I do know as well with Kyiv, the capital, that I reported on this the other day. The Russians bombed a frozen food warehouse outside of Kyiv, and it was in preparation for the siege they want to land to starve everybody. Now, Kyiv is not surrounded yet by the Russians. So my bet would be they're still not having problems with they're not having problems with food in Kyiv, not yet. Now it still gets kind of weird because the supplies still have to come in by rail or truck, and where are they coming from? I mean, it gets a little scary there if you're trying to supply stuff. But the Russians have not surrounded the city yet. The Russians are in the northeast and the northwest, the north in general, east and west. But the bottom part, they're kind of coming in from the east. They haven't encircled the city yet. So at least so far, it's not a siege yet. So I would think, maybe they're having some issues with food, but I don't think so, not yet. And we're not hearing about it either. I think we'd be hearing about it if it were a problem. Whereas a lot of the other cities, this is exactly what the Russians are doing, and it is exactly what the Russians will be doing to Kyiv if they get a chance. They want to blow the hell out of it, surround it, and starve people out. And then finally send in the men after the population is weaker and tired and everything else. So scrolling. Boop. Yeah, somebody just said China has enough problems with rising inflation. Very good point. MT, Jen, what do you think about Russia wanting Alaska? I know, Antarctica and Fort Ross back. Wait, Fort Ross I hadn't heard. Where's Fort Ross? Well, I'm going to even Google it on my phone, Fort Ross. I know about, I've heard, we talked about Antarctica last night, and Alaska I heard, although I was hoping that was just a joke. But I know they've been more, what do you want to say, aggressive in Antarctica. Fort Ross, California? Am I missing what Fort Ross? Oh, former Russian establishment on the west coast of North America in what is now Sonoma County. Get out of here. I didn't know that. The thing is, he's trying to build up nationalism, and he thinks he's being cute. So that's why they're bringing up stuff like Alaska, I think, that Putin's saying these things. He's trying to be cute. He probably figures, again, they're trying to scare the Americans. So they're saying things about nuclear war and everything else. And maybe he thinks he scares us by making cute jokes about Alaska. The Russians step one foot in Alaska, and it is going to be World War. So I think they know that. I mean, that's the kind of, and this is where, again, why I don't like the language about world war when we use it saying we don't want a world war with Russia, because if Russia were to invade America, we'd have to have a world war with Russia. So we shouldn't say that we're afraid, that under no circumstance would we have one. Of course, there are circumstances. I mean, I don't want it to happen, but of course there are circumstances under which we would go to war with Russia. Come on. I'm looking again. Hope. Oh, there we go. MT. I'm still scrolling down. MT, you're doing like God's work tonight. Thank you. Well, Medvedev, I can never pronounce his name, replaced Putin. It's funny. I have a friend who knows him, but she's trying to lay low. An American friend. She knew him really well when he was a lower level official. She like worked with him all the time. And I'll say this. I don't want to be breaching her confidence, although you don't know who she is. But she said that he was really reasonable at the time, and she's shocked at who he is now. Absolutely shocked at who he's become, which I thought was interesting. I mean, she goes, I wish I could talk to him and just like slap him around and, slap some sense into him, because he's become somebody totally different. But he could. I think look, depends what gets rid of Putin, right? I mean, Putin gets ill. There's talk about him being ill. The general step in or somebody to get rid of him. Could a general take over instead for a while? Is there a revolution in the country where the public rises up? Russia apparently has a history of revolutions associated with military defeats, that the country takes military defeats very seriously, and it ruins the credibility of the government, and you had revolutions. This happened especially when, and you get to the point where the military isn't willing to support the government anymore. This apparently they're saying happened in large part because of Afghanistan in the 80s. Mind you, right? Russia started falling apart with the Eastern Europe in 89, started falling apart. Then 1991, you had the coup attempt, and then the Soviet Union just dissolved. Or again, I'm thinking, I don't want to get the order wrong on the coup in the Soviet Union, but 1991, it was gone. So the question becomes, if we were to have a popular uprising, could they want somebody like Navalny instead? Maybe. But again, Russia being Russia, you'd have to have the buy-in from the military and those guys, right? Because, the oligarchs, the business leaders, all that. If Medvedev, I can never pronounce it, is the guy, it's just worrisome, because he's become kind of Putin's toadies in recent years, and that has people worried. Unless he's truly doing it because he's just trying to save his butt. Who knows? Amanda, how long will this last? Good question. Different circumstances, but didn't the U.S. go to Afghanistan expecting it to be short with failing suppliers like Russia? I'm not up on what went wrong in Afghanistan as far as all of that, other than the fact that obviously they were our run in Afghanistan. Well, I mean, I know some of it was a lie. I'm not a lie. Excuse me, not a lie. Let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. The Iraq thing screwed Afghanistan to some degree. I was long story on Afghanistan, but I totally get why the U.S. had to go in because of 9/11 and the Taliban. But within the first year or two, the administration really wanted to go after Iraq, and we started shifting our assets from Afghanistan to Iraq. For example, the CIA office dedicated with finding bin Laden, I read, was disbanded. I think they were still trying to find him, but it was disbanded because they wanted all those resources to go to the future war in Iraq. Satellites that were being used to hunt him again and help the war in Afghanistan got repositioned and recommissioned to Iraq. So, a lot of things there. I don't know all the details on Afghanistan, why we lost, but how long this will last. What the military experts are saying is Russia can't win this, but Russia has enough not manpower. They have enough military power and weapons to obliterate Ukraine, to level it to the ground. So we know that. We also know that Russia does not have enough manpower to actually own the land afterwards. They don't have enough land power to neutralize the Ukrainian threat, to either occupy it and put in a puppet government, or to actually annex it. They just don't have the manpower, and the Ukrainians, as we've seen, are way stronger than anybody even thought they would be at fighting back, and better at fighting back, and the morale at fighting back and everything else. So what I was seeing was this will go on, because they said, for example, the siege of Kyiv. Nobody thinks the siege of Kyiv is going to be short. They think it's going to be weeks and weeks and weeks. What people like General Hertling said, the American general who I like a lot, he, however, was talking about supplies being so bad, the military being so crippled at this point with the troops that are dead and hurt, but also the military equipment being damaged, that he felt, and I'm trying to remember if it was beginning of May or beginning of June, I'm not sure which month. So let's split the difference. Let's say mid-May. But by May, into May or early or latest June 1st, the Russians were going to be the Russian army would be in serious trouble in Afghanistan, exactly, in Ukraine. And what I mean by that is not what we're talking today, where they're not winning, but they're not losing, but they're kind of, they're losses, but they would be, he used the word destroyed. So, let's see. But clearly this is going on longer than the Russians prepared for. And clearly the Ukrainians have shocked the hell out of us. And again, I don't say that in a condescending way, but everyone believed the Russians were 10 feet tall and they would crush Ukraine in 3 days. And now what I've mentioned before, and the generals brought up, is they think, I think there are like 3 different generals saying this now, within the next, this is where I've got to be careful talking. I can feel my throat getting hoarse. Don't do that. At least I've got the day or two off with my nose surgery tomorrow. But multiple generals were saying, American former generals, that things are so bad for Russia that they expect in the next few days, Russia is going to switch from offense to defense. That instead of picking the targets and going in, they're going to be literally the Ukrainians picking the targets and the Russians having to fight back. That it's that bad for Russia. So, but again, no one thinks it's going to end anytime soon. That's the problem. But with the way they're going in May, June, which is still March, April, May, you're talking 2 to 3 months still. But now the other question becomes, do the Russians kill so many people, which is what they're hoping to do, that Zielinski feels he has to reach a negotiated settlement and give up half his country or whatever to Russia? I don't see him doing that. I don't see the Ukrainians doing that, but that would be one of the wild cards. Scrolling down. I know I'm getting some rest. I don't mind. I told you guys, I'm happy to go longer when you got the questions there. All right. I think, my God, you guys have, I appreciate it though. You've never asked this many questions. I have never spent this. At some point, we'll have to figure it out because I hope these will continue to grow. Once TikTok gets me back on the air, knock on wood, I'm going to be having this, my YouTube and my TikTok side by side. So I'm going to have double the questions and some of the moderators. I'm in Washington, D.C. actually. Oh God, no, I'm not in Ukraine. But my lives, I'm doing the live broadcasts. But when I get back on TikTok, I'm going to have them side by side, which will make it very difficult to keep up with the questions and stuff. So, unfortunately, I think it'll be, how long will this LS last? LS? What does LS mean? I don't know what LS means. I don't know what LS means, CB. Let me say real quick, Tony, let me jump in on that really quick. Fair enough. Let me give a couple more of the updates I was going to give. I will pick out the stuff that I think you need to know. Schwarzenegger, this is kind of a big deal. It was a big deal, actually. At first I saw it, and I didn't watch it because I thought, it's kind of silly. Oh, the live stream. Oh, well, the live stream typically goes an hour. We do an hour of questions and substance. Today, I've got so many questions that basically people are paying for, so to speak, when they do the super questions, that I've promised, because it never went this long, that if you put one of those questions up, I'll answer it. Normally we do an hour and then I hang out afterwards. I've been trying to make it half an hour. It's been an hour lately. Another hour of just chit-chatting about life in general, because people have enjoyed it and we've got a nice little community here. But I'll have to be cutting that back a little because I just can't keep doing, I don't want to do 2 hours every day and burn out, because this stuff is too important, or frankly, have my voice go. Because you know what I can tell I'm doing too, which I shouldn't be doing? I'm projecting when I talk to you guys, and I shouldn't be doing that because I'm not giving a speech. I've got a microphone here, and it's fine. And I've got to teach myself not to project, because that's what's making my voice hoarse. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is super popular in Russia, the president of Russia, or Putin, the president of Russia's Twitter account, the official Twitter account, follows 22 people. One of the 22 people is Arnold. Literally, he is a beloved hero in Russia. History with Russia goes way back. He did a video today speaking to the Russian people, as only Schwarzenegger can do. It was a wonderful video. He speaks in English. Below is in English and in Russian. And he's telling the story of how when he was a 14-year-old kid, he got to go to a weightlifting match where the Soviet big guy was there, who was Arnold's hero. And his father, he got to meet the guy. The guy was really, shook his hand. He goes, it was this huge hand, really nice to him, really inspired him. And how When he came home, he had the poster of the guy up in his bedroom, and his father was pissed at him because he was like, you don't need some stupid, Soviet on your wall. You need to get an Austrian hero, not a Soviet hero. He had big fights with his father about it, kept in touch. This man became his friend, and they friends through life, always back and forth to Russia. Arnold did the first the first American movie filmed on Red Square, I learned today, something that I'd never even heard of. But there's Arnold in like the Soviet military uniform with the hat kind of thing. But I'd never heard about it. So what Arnold did is he did a video. It's probably a good 10 minutes long, and it's directed to the Russian troops. And he spends a good 5-6 minutes talking about his love of Russia. And I think it's brilliant. Now, I will not claim to be an expert on the Russian psyche, but I did study a lot about Russia in graduate school, and I've been there several times. And I even found, my gut told me this. I went to the Russian Far East into Petropavlovsk, which is interesting. Yes, MT, thank you for that. Petropavlovsk, which is in the Russian Far East, southern tip of Kamchatka. If you ever played the game of Risk, it's that appendage of Siberia hanging off, right? Went to Kamchatka. Amazing. Petropavlovsk, met the people. I was the most senior as a staffer in a U.S. Senate office at like age 30. I was the most senior American official to step foot in Kamchatka since the revolution. So they had a big, talked about this before. I won't do it all now, but a big like festival for us, a cultural thing where the little girls danced and all these presentations. It was really sweet. And I got up and intentionally, because I'd studied a lot about Russia, but I know there is this Russian heart thing, and they're very heartfelt people. And I made sure I piled on about, the love between our two peoples and the new beginnings and all of that. And they freaking loved it. I mean, I meant it, but they freaking loved it. And I've also met a lot of Russians one-on-one, incredibly heartfelt people one-on-one. So Arnold spends the first 6 minutes just doing this heartfelt thing about, I love Russia. Here's my history with Russia. You are my heroes. You are my this, what you did in World War II, And he turns it from that to, and I will say this, to telling him your leaders are lying to you about this war. And he says, you started this war. You are leading this war. You can stop this war. I'm speaking to you today because there are things that are going on in the world that are being kept from you. Terrible things that you should know about. Ukraine did not start this war. Neither did nationalists or Nazis. Those in power in the Kremlin started this war. This is not the Russian people's war. He also, and I'll end with the Schwarzenegger thing, he also added when he said, your government has told you these are Nazis, he showed a picture of Zielinski standing next to a huge menorah in Kyiv. And he said, their president is Jewish. He lost family in the Holocaust. He is not a Nazi. Your leaders have lied to you. Oh my God. So he concluded by telling the troops themselves, you've got to stand up. You can't fight this war. And then he turned to sort of the civilian leadership too and said to Russia's leaders, not that they're going to listen to him, but very interesting. I mean, hopefully that goes viral enough that even people in Russia are able to see it. But that was kind of an amazing thing. The only other thing I will give you, the U.S. House voted to strip Russia of its most favored nation status, which would increase tariffs. The Senate still has to agree. I don't know what the status is there. Senator Schumer, who's the Democratic leader of the U.S. Senate, says they're working on it, but I don't know what the status is. Brittany Griner, who was the basketball star that they arrested, there was just a quick update on her. The Russian court extended her detention to May 19th, the women's basketball player that they claimed had drugs, but is most likely a lie. That it was extended to May 19th. And she could be sentenced up to 10 years. I think they're going to they're going to railroad her. They're going to sentence her to 10 years, and they're going to use her as a negotiating chip, for the sanctions or something else, I think. Somebody asked about, I'm just doing a couple quick points, and then we'll stop. Somebody asked about the Ghost of Kiev. Actually, I'll close with that one. The Ghost of Kiev is maybe apocryphal, but the Ukrainians say he's real, is a Ukrainian fighter pilot that reportedly has killed like shot down over 10 Russian fighter jets. And they call him the Ghost of Kiev, not the Ghost of Kiev. I'm sorry, the Ghost of Kiev. And there was a report in the last week, but it wasn't necessarily a definitive report from the government, that he had been shot down and killed. At the same time, Zielinski awarded a pilot posthumously an award for all of their work, and people thought it was the Ghost of Kyiv. Now, I checked PolitiFact, which is one of the big American media fact-checking sites, and what they said, they are calling it false because there's currently no evidence for it. They said there is just none. It could be a separate fighter pilot that got shot down, but there's been no evidence at all that the person that was shot down was this Ghost of Kyiv. And they contacted the Romanian government about it and hadn't heard back. But I'm also guessing the Romanian government isn't giving press comments to an American newspaper about the Ghost of Kyiv right about now. All right, guys, that's what I've got. Unless there was another question I didn't know about. Let's call it quits. We've been doing an hour 45. This is probably appropriate that I did extra long with you guys with the questions, since tomorrow, as I was saying, I've got my we can hang a couple minutes. So anybody on the live with us, I see there's still 325. If you need to go, obviously don't worry about it, but we can hang and just chat a few minutes. But there's like a thing with my nose, not to go through the details, but it affects my breathing, and they said I need like surgery that isn't a big deal, but they make inside wider, and that includes blood and nasty things. So I'm taking all these pills today and tomorrow. I do the surgery tomorrow. It's easy surgery. They just give you a lot of things to make you feel happy, but it means the next few days I'm gonna be. They said it's gonna hurt for a day or two. They told me. The question becomes, I know that first day I'm going to be out of it. So tomorrow night, even a dental procedure, you come home and you're kind of like, so I know I'm going to be out of it when I come home. Let's just see how I'm feeling for Saturday. I may take the weekend off. We'll see. I mean, I don't want the momentum to die on my TikTok either, but it's still easier for me to do a 30-second TikTok video than it is an hour or two long live with you guys if I'm still not feeling well. So let me see how I'm feeling. But in principle, or you know what? If I'm feeling good but not perfect, maybe we finally do a half-hour live on Sunday or something. I know a lot of the other folks I like. I follow a lot of the cryptocurrency guys, and a lot of them will. I was going to give you I always like to give my links for everything. The crypto guys will come on sometimes just for half an hour, and I have to and answer questions and stuff, but somehow they find the fortitude to say, no, I've got to get off at the half-hour mark, which I can't even do after an hour, let alone two. So I will try to, worst comes to worst, maybe we'll do a shorter one on Sunday, because I know you guys you'll appreciate it if I'm still having the news pain. So yes, so this is the link to my whole collection of Sunday. Yeah, we'll do Sunday brunch. Well, usually I do shoot for 1:00 on Sunday, so that would be an American brunch. Oh no. Okay, there were more questions I didn't address. I'm sorry. Okay, email them to me, MT, and I'm sorry about that, guys. Email them to me, and I will bring them up in the next chat. At some point, guys, we're going to have to figure out how to handle the super chat, because it's just not going to be possible to take all the questions. I will probably have to make clear at the front with you that I will try to get to all of them. If there's extras, I will try to get to them next time. But my guess is at some point, this is going to get so big that it's going to be impossible to answer every question. So we'll have to look at the super chat as being a donation, and I will attempt to get to as many as we can in the allotted time. We'll do it that way. And the non-super chat question. Well, the non-super chat questions haven't been working, only because we had so many super chat questions today, which I love you for, because seriously, I get a portion of that and it really helps me. I've decided, this is the kind of work I do anyway, but I've decided for now, this is what I'm going to do full time. I'm doing this with you guys. I spend all day on TikTok, all day on Twitter, and all day watching the news and reading all the papers I can online and all the news segments, and just digesting it, putting it together, and synthesizing it for you guys. So that's what I want to do. I answered them all. Oh my God. Woo! That deserves some chocolate. I know the originals YouTuber should get a sticker. I know it'd be like, you're one of the originals. Speaking of the originals, my vampire show I'm going to go watch. But I'm trying to see. All right, I'm going to see where. Oh, I wish you could see this. There's no way to show you this, but my dog, she's a Yorkie Bichon. I may pick her up anyway. She likes to go under blankets. She likes to sleep under blankets, and she's under my work desk, under a blanket with her bed, but her nose, just all you've got is her little black nose sticking out from under the blanket and the workbench, because she likes to be able to breathe. So she's literally hidden, and you see this little black thing. Absolutely freaking adorable. I know, chocolate. Hello, you. Oh, she woke up. Okay, I'm gonna get a TREAT for her. I am gonna get you a treat. I am, but you're gonna have to say hi to people for it. Let's get you a treat. And you're not moving, which means you know what I'm gonna do, don't you? You've learned. Here, come on. I'm gonna give you half now, and then half when you say hi to everybody. Here you go. Go ahead, try first. Here you go. All right. Oh, that's okay. Oh boy. Here we go. Sasha gets very annoyed when I do this. Here, let me try this a little bit. Oop. There you go. Hi. Yeah. What's going on, you? Oh, I'm getting licked. Okay. That's her litter box. Sasha is litter trained, believe it or not. How's that for wild? So that's just make sure there's nothing there. My loans or something. But yeah, Sasha's litter trained. Really amazing. Whoop. Here you go, girl. Go. Okay, you go down, girl. I'm sorry. My sister is doing well. I told folks yesterday she got a puppy. She got the puppy. My sister got, let me see. She keeps sending us pictures, and I'm like, send me a video of the puppy. She got a Yorkie poo puppy, which is the same dog. She just lost her dog of 17 and a half years. She got her when the dog was 10 weeks old. I went with her and got dementia. I mean, didn't know what she was doing. It was really awful. The dog was sundowning, which I didn't know animals could do. The dog would sleep all day, and at night she'd just walk around the house and bump into walls. Didn't know how to get in her cage. I mean, it was just couldn't eat. She could eat when Kathy fed her one by one. That's when they took him to the vet, and the vet said, "Yeah, you gotta, it's time." And anyway, she was thinking about it for a long time, and she decided to get another dog. I mean, she loves Carmela, but she got another Yorkie poo, and she got a puppy, 10-week-old puppy that's 1.5 pounds. So the dog may only end up being 5 pounds, which is fine, but you don't want them to get too small. Let me, hang on here. I'm gonna see. She's also been texting, so there's always a chance she sent another. Of course, my nephews, of course, are sending pictures of their kids, of course, because that's what we do. Oh, that's funny. Kenny, she sent a picture of the dog that you can't see the dog because she's camouflaged. But let me see. Come on. Here we go. Oh, shoot. The earlier pictures. Hold on. Kathy, send me a quick picture of the dog. I'm on YouTube with 300 people, and they want to see the dog. Or a video, even better. Hang on. One second. The dog's name is Layla, which in many languages means dark because she's black. Let's see if she does a really quick one here. She's black with a little bit of white on her chin, a white stripe, but a super thin white stripe, and these little white paws. I mean, absolutely freaking adorable. And again, folks, you don't need to stay. We're just hanging out, chatting now. We're done with the substance for the night. The dog's name is Layla, which means darkness, blackness in a number of languages and all of that, which is interesting. Oh, the beaver papers. Yeah, you mentioned that. Yep. You mentioned that before. I remember that. I'm going to look and see if I kept her picture. I don't know that I downloaded the dog's picture. For some reason, it's not on my text anymore, and I don't know why. Well, that's a bummer. Oh, here we go. I've got one. It's not the best picture, but you can see. Here, whoop. There she is. Imagine 1.5 pounds. Imagine that. Oh my, it's that's what somebody said yesterday, the Ewok. Oh, and she took her for the first walk last night around the block. And she said the dog did great. The dog made it almost around the entire block without stopping, which was good. The lady she got it from said the dog is frisky. Carmela, her old dog, at 17 and a half. I mean, Carmela loved me, my dad, and my Uncle John. And my sister Kathy, but we were the big four that she loved. For some reason, I met her as a puppy and brought her. Maybe she bonded with my dad. She adored my dad and my Uncle John. And but Carmela was a Zoomy dog. She had the energy of 10 dogs. And every time you'd see her, she'd get so excited. She'd zoom around the house and then come to you and then zoom around the house. At age 17 and a half, this dog was still zooming. It was insane. I mean, she never calmed down. So I get a suspicion that this dog is going to be the same. She named her Layla, which apparently one of the origins of the name Layla is darkness, dark, not in a bad way, not like evil, Tenebra or whatever, but there was some kind of a neat derivation of dark, like daughters of darkness, but again, not in a devil worship kind of way. Trust me, I read the Wikipedia entry. It was very nice. It was a very nice analogy for darkness. Oh gosh. All right, guys. You know what? Yeah, let's quit. I mean, it's already been 2 hours anyway, so I want to quit. Oh wait. She just sent a video. How's that for on demand? Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Oh God. All right, hold on. I'm gonna download this. Hang on. Oh my God, she's barking. This is too funny. Okay, guys, hang on. You're gonna want to see this. I've got a dog video. I've got the sister's dog. I'm gonna check it first to see if I've got to lighten it a little bit for you to see it better. Hang on. If you want to see a ridiculously adorable puppy. Yeah, I'm gonna lighten it a touch because dark animals you usually can't see. Now let me just see one last thing here. Yeah, I'm gonna zoom in so you can see her better. Hold on. Me being the photo guy, I love doing photography, so I'm always editing photos and things. So, all right. Well, that's hopefully this is enough. Let's see. Oop, hang on. Oop, oh God. Oh my God. Wait. Okay. Sorry. Oh my God. She's barking. She's growling at my brother-in-law. Kathy's laughing. She's scared. Oh, you know what? She may be scared of the camera. Little baby dog bark. Oh my God, that was too. Wait, that was it. Actually, here I'm gonna put it closer to the mic so you can hear this. Any of the dog lovers won't mind me playing this again. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Okay, so my dog's gonna get pissed too. I love the bark at the end. I love the bark at the end. Like, oh my God, 10 weeks old, and she's already going to be a little pistol. Clearly, I mean, she was clearly a little scared there. No, I'm shocked that she didn't respond. No, surprised on that one. So this is funny. Your dog went crazy. That's very funny. Yeah, no, Sasha, that's really funny. That like, she doesn't react. She would react like Sasha hates the TV. I cannot. That whole Westminster dog show thing or the puppy thing they do at the Super Bowl, I can never turn on. I try to watch the dog show and literally she flips out. I mean, she flips out. She runs to the TV. Then she does the running behind the TV thing because dogs don't get TV. So they often think the TV animal is an animal standing there behind. Oh, I mean, I've taped it. I've videoed her a few times and I put it on, but she's so bad that I can't leave it on more than 10 seconds. I feel bad and it's just annoying. Yeah, that puppy. But anyway, the puppy's adorable. Clearly is feisty because you can tell. I mean, she probably was scared of the camera, although frankly, of the phone. It's probably good for her to see the phone and get used to it, obviously, because that dog's going to become quite intimate with that camera, as any puppy would be. But I love her little eye. Oh my God. Just absolutely hilarious. Oh my God. Now Sasha's shaking in the other room. All right, guys, it's 9:00. I'm going to sign off. Oh my God, you got a dog going to Westminster. Get out of here. Wow. Well, that's a conversation for another. Actually, let me ask you one thing. If I end the broadcast, you guys can still chat in the chat, can't you? I think. Give me a quick little A or nay there. Because I certainly don't mind you guys staying. It's 9:00. I've been here 2 hours. I got to sign off. Either way, if I see more comments in the chat, then I'll know you guys can stay. Okay, thank you again. And I mean, thank you for all the questions because, again, you're supporting me, but at the same time, it shows you guys are involved and you care, and I love that. And by the way, do not fear. I think and hope TikTok will get me back on. But once they do, I'm keeping the YouTubes going as well. We'll see about Facebook, probably Facebook too, because and Twitter, because I do it all through the same software. But I absolutely will continue the YouTubes, not a problem. I'm going to do YouTube and TikTok for sure. They've got to be done separately because that's the way it works with the software. But nonetheless, I'm staying. Okay, guys, thank you for another good night. This may have been our best night yet. I mean, turnout was slightly lower than yesterday, but still very good. But certainly our best discussion. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your interest.